All right. So we're back again. I'm Stephanie Gray. This is Jenny Hahn, and
Hey,
we are
Jen.
founders of Creative Nectar Studio. And today we thought we would talk a little bit about process art, not necessarily just process painting, although that's how we both began, but process art in general and what that is, in case you've never done it and you're curious and you'd like to join us. So, um, yeah, we'll just get right into it. Um, I will say process art is something that is definitely very, very specific to you. It is for you and it's only for you. And, one of the questions we've asked before in the studio is, as you're painting or as you're working in your book, who are you making this for? And the answer will hopefully always be yourself. It's sort of an uncovering process that happens when we work this way.
Yes, yes. And we often talk about it as being like creating from the inside out,
Mm.
you know, creating as a method of self-discovery and um, coming into the body and, you know, really making it about the process, not the product, not the finished piece, right?
Yeah, that's it. That was exactly, yes. It is. That's why it's called process art, or at least as far as I know. Process art is for the process, like processing things, how you're feeling in the moment. Can that show up on your page somehow?
Right, right. And in that sense, it can be a tool for mindfulness. You know, we've talked a lot about that. And I don't, I'm not thrilled about the term mindfulness, but heartfulness, dropping into the
Mm.
heart and awareness, basically bringing awareness to our present moment experiences and what is alive in us in the moment and wanting to express.
Yeah, however that is and however that looks in the moment, it's okay. It doesn't have to be prettied up. This isn't about painting a pretty picture. It's not about going home with a finished product. It's about how are you going to meet this moment right now with some color.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, we were talking earlier. I'd love to share when I found Sarah's group originally, I had just graduated from art school, so I had some artistic training, and yet there was something about the process work that turned everything else on its head. And I am a painter, but I use process in my own work. And to me, the difference is really that if I'm making a painting that I expect to exhibit or share somewhere, that is running in the background in a way, guiding the process of it becoming. And in school, in illustration, we were taught to sketch out concepts and come up with ideas and then execute them. And it's like, this is so opposite from that. And that was what was so healing, is that literally we don't have to plan what we're going to do at all. We don't have to know. It doesn't have to make sense. And literally we can just start by moving with paint or with pens or whatever it is, and allow it to unfold, and then trusting step by step like what is becoming. It was so opposite from, it's definitely not your typical art class.
Hey, that's so true. That's so true. In fact, in the old days, I remember in Sarah's studio, there was no pencils or pens allowed. Like that wasn't even a thing. You had to use like just the very basic materials. And coming at it from someone who had never done any sort of art before, except maybe art class in grade school. Um, it was scary, really scary, but something about the fact, because some of the guidelines are that there's no commenting from anybody that's in the group with you. There's no judging going on. You're just allowed to put whatever comes up on the page. It's
Mm.
there's this creative safe container that's happening, and that really felt okay to be able to just some of my really early stuff, it was, basically stick figures and color, but it was still just as powerful as anything else. Yeah, it's freeing to be able to do something like that and to be able to play with art materials and not have to be an artist and have that be okay. And that might sound weird to an
Absolutely.
artist, but like everybody wants to play with creative materials, I think, like at least a lot of people. And for some reason, I had this block. Well, I can't play with art materials. I'm not an artist. And then you go
Mm.
into this room that's filled with materials, paint, and it smells like paint and all these colors and water and oh my gosh, it's just awesome.
It's like a playground.
It is like a playground. Thank you. Yes.
Yes. And the beauty of it is that you don't have to have any experience. I mean, absolutely no art experience is necessary. In fact, having art experience might actually trip you up. And it's funny, but some of the people who, it's in my experience, who can get the most blocked are those of us who've had some sort of training, and have art rules in our heads, and it's about letting that go, and yeah, coming back to something much more raw and real and just in the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And, along those lines, I have had people ask me, well, then, if you're doing this, then why do it? And if you're doing it just for the emotional release, well, isn't that the same as um, therapy, art therapy, right? Well, the only thing I can say about that is, I mean, yeah, it is for the emotional release, but it's also just to give yourself permission to play sometimes, to just meet yourself. And unlike art therapy, in process art, we don't try to analyze anything. There's no analyzing going on.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Again, it doesn't have to make sense, and nobody's going to be analyzing it. Um, like you said, not commenting even that they love it, like even that can get us stuck. And that there's no critiquing. I mean, basically, yeah, there's just honoring what is showing up, and that's it. That's enough.
Absolutely. Like these amazing images or just color combinations or whatever, energetic expressions are happening. And that is being born from you. Something that's never, ever been born before is being born. And that's incredible.
Right. There is a sacredness to that. And yeah, and that is something to be honored and celebrated.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, yeah.
And the
Can't agree.
relief of knowing, like, I can't get this wrong, which it was, I remember when I heard that, it's like, yeah, right. But you cannot get it wrong because it's a process that you are doing for yourself. And yeah,
Yeah, there's no
showed
mistakes.
up. Right,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I love that we use very basic materials for the most part.
Hmm.
Um, in workshops we've used tempera paints, but sometimes more collage materials. I mean, what you do in heart journaling, um, and it's really freeing to use materials that you don't get caught up on this fear of ruining as much when you have these basic materials that children would use rather than really expensive tubes of oil paint and a stretched
Right.
canvas, and it's like, I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That can
exciting.
exactly. Yeah. Um, yes, that was freeing to know that that we would be working on pieces of paper as opposed to, canvas, which feels so precious.
Mhm.
Yeah. And, so we started out doing process painting, which Jenny still does workshops and stuff in person when the world allows.
Never classes will happen again in the world.
Yeah. But I switched a few years ago to working in old books, like altered books, and just it's basically like art journaling, only you're transforming a book. Art journaling would be fine too, but the key is to use the same guidelines, which is, not using necessarily precious materials, and having it just be for the process and not the product. And it still, it still works no matter where you apply it.
Yes, yes. And especially right now, as people are staying in more and, especially when we were under stricter quarantine, literally using any materials that are around you. I mean, I was processing using a Sharpie marker,
Yeah,
it's like, it's not even about the materials. It's really um, just about allowing and seeing what is needing expression. And working with color is great, and that's to me that's preferable, but it's not required even.
absolutely. It's about what's happening inside and energetically how it can come out onto the page. And, you know, so I guess if you've never ever done this before, you can get stuck and you can get, caught up in what's going on in your head. And that's what we're here for, is we help facilitate your process, um, by asking certain questions. In some of the online classes, we have writing prompts that get you started, and sensing experiences to sort of get you familiar with, checking in with your body, and then moving from there to start the process art process.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah,
And that can be helpful. Yeah, because like you were saying, like especially for someone who hasn't created before ever, that fear can be really debilitating. And how do I start? Where do, and so yeah, that oftentimes we can get really caught up in our minds and trying to control it. And so really, yeah, anything that can drop us into the body and um, yeah, just to start from there is really helpful.
yeah. That place of the heart that you were talking about earlier, definitely. Even if
Yeah.
it's just scribbling, and sometimes we start with a scribble
Yes.
to
Yeah.
move the energy, and sometimes that's all. If you only have time for a scribble, like that's awesome. That's perfect.
Yes. Can be
Yeah,
so helpful. Moving the energy. Or those times when we get stuck, grabbing another something and just moving. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And there we when we started, there were other guidelines, for the process. There was, not definitely staying on the same image and same painting or piece that you started on initially, that day or that workshop or whatever, trying to stick with the same, painting or image, to because a lot of times we want to escape something that's starting to feel uncomfortable, and so we just would like start another
Mhm.
page if we had our choice, or we don't want to mess it up, and so we decide that it's perfect as is. And then even though something else might want to occur, if we think, oh no, I can't do that, that would ruin it. So there is some of that still happens with us when we're facilitating the process. Wouldn't you say, Jenny?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've kind of relaxed around some of those. I think,
Me too.
yeah, sometimes it's helpful, like you were saying, to have another sheet or something, like if a scribble needs to happen or whatever, so
Hmm.
but in general, the suggestions are to not run away from whatever's showing up, and or even to, if you need to run away, to be able to come back to it.
Yes, yes,
Have a couple, but it's also that gentleness of just noticing what is showing up for us and where we are with it and how can we work with it. So there's definitely some flexibility there, but I also understand where some of those initial guidelines came from, because it's so easy for us to just want to paint over something we don't like, that
absolutely.
and running away. So yeah, yeah,
It's
there's
an yeah, it's an interesting practice of discernment and getting to know ourselves, basically.
yes.
And it's different each time we show up because we're in a different space each time.
Absolutely. Yes, we can come back to the same piece we were working on before, and we're in a completely different space. And, it's like, how's our energy now? Are we drawn back into it? Is there something else showing up? Is there something else that wants to come into it?
Yeah.
It's kind of this fluid process of just whatever it is we are needing in that moment, and how that ends up looking, how we can support that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that as facilitators, that is what we can help you support yourself with, you
Yeah.
know. So, I
Yes.
mean, it, I would love to hear from anyone who has any questions whatsoever. Like if you're out there and you've been curious about process arts, process painting, process journaling, whatever, um, but you just have questions, and we're here. So we would love to hear on comments or whatever. You can even send us an email.
It
That would be
does.
awesome.
Yes, absolutely. We're here for you.
Yeah. So I think that's it. That's the
Yeah.
that's the process art in a nutshell. Jenny, do you have anything else to add?
Um, no, I don't think so. Just to really reiterate that there are no mistakes, and this is a discovery process, really. And so, yeah, I just invite anyone who is desiring to connect with themselves in this way, that it is available, and you don't have to be in any certain kind of state of mind or with any kind of experience. It's just showing up as you are.
Absolutely. And you're cultivating that, showing up as you are for yourself. And it becomes this invaluable tool that can be used, especially as things just get stranger and more uncertain. It's here for me. It's here for you. It's here for anyone who's interested in dabbling, even.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
All
all
right.
right.
Thanks, Steph.
Well, thanks, Jenny. This has been obviously another wonderful, wonderful time together,
As always.
as always. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. We'll see